Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here. What the world needs now is love. More love.
Stars literally aligned.
He's always been the one.
There's someone out there for everyone.
I'm Nancy Regan, your host on the Canadian Love Map. We are on a journey to uncover and share love stories of all kinds.
He's never forgotten to bring me flowers.
We're hoping we're going to give a little good news to this world.
Even in these dark times, the life continues to go on.
It's all about compassion, devotion, adventure, and of course, love.
Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs love.
This is the Canadian Love Map.
Well, love is the most important thing.
As I'm like having a drink, I look on the fridge of a friend's house and I say, I just need to date a guy like that. Someone who's spontaneous and funny and doesn't take themselves too seriously. And they were like, actually, that's Steve. So I wanted someone who also was really authentic and didn't put on a mask hiding who they were. All I knew was that he was somebody who was authentically himself, and that really excited me.
Today's love story belongs to Alyssa and Steve. Couples are often asked, how did you two meet? And these two might just have the best answer ever. It involves a party, a Christmas card on a fridge, and a scantily clad bachelor with a huge sense of humor. This is the Canadian Love Map. Alyssa and Steve, I'm so excited to welcome you to the podcast. And I wonder about those just listening, thinking, what are these two wearing? I've never had that concern during an episode before.
Thank you for having us, Nancy. And yes, we were fully clothed today, just for you and just for the listeners, because, if you want to look at the cards, you're welcome to, but we don't need to put it right in your face today.
Not that we didn't debate wearing or not wearing some of our former costumes, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. You two have produced so many images that create joy in the world. And you have a very, unique way of sending out love at Christmas. So we want to get into that. And I guess we better start with Steve.
Yeah, perfect. So Nancy, way back in the day when I was just a single man, I was just all by myself on Christmas time. And I found myself going over to family and friends' places and looking at their fridges, and everybody's fridge has these nice Christmas cards on it. And I always thought to myself, wouldn't it be funny if I just did one myself? So I ended up going backpacking across Europe. And at the end of that trip, I was looking a little scrubby. So I ended up taking what change I had left in my pocket into one of the photo booths, took a picture, and I decided that was going to be my first Christmas card. So I sent that around to some friends and family. And then the next year I got a little bit more riskier, just wearing or not wearing so much clothing. And then it just so happened that a local photographer based out of Nanton, where I was born and raised, she approached me and asked me if she could do it for me. And then that we collab and send out these Christmas cards. And that's kind of how it all started. It was just honestly a genuine way to try to make people laugh and smile around the holidays.
How did you land on her radar, the photographers?
So we both lived in the same town and we had some mutual friends. We didn't officially meet until she reached out to me to get together, and we just hit it off from there.
Okay, so I have never heard, I guess I've got to get out more. I've never heard the expression boudoir.
The photographer's name is Lori Lurie, and she coined that phrase to me, saying how she was doing a bunch of boudoir shoots for like some brides to be, or maybe for some just other ladies that wanted to get some of those photos done. And after she thought about, Steve, this is kind of like the original doudoir. So you're the male version of boudoir, but we're going to call it doudoir because I think that's a little bit more, catchy.
Oh my gosh. Describe to us some of those early cards, if you will.
Absolutely. So The one that really sticks out in my mind is when, so I played some senior hockey down and around Southern Alberta, and we had some trophies. So I decided to do a pose behind the trophies, covering said parts of the body. And the photographer was very kind to me, maybe some slight airbrushing, but so it looked like there wasn't a lot I was wearing. The trophies were covering up my unmentionables. So
Yeah, the trophy was very strategically placed.
yes. And then we ended up doing a hockey shoot on a hockey ice where I'd come and blow snow, the old kind of hockey cards back in the 80s, early 90s, where guys would blow snow in their full gear. Well, I did that in just my jock strap. And so I had long hair, and so the hair was flowing in the wind, and they just ended up getting a little bit more risky. And so the year after that, I did like an autumn shoot with a bunch of leaves and my loincloth and my long flowing hair. So basically just my body was out there for everyone to see. And of course, I loved it because it just makes people smile. Made some people cringe, but I mean, that's the risk you take, I guess.
I was just going to ask you about the feedback, and the feedback must have grown year by year, as did the shoots. What were people telling you?
A lot of people enjoyed them. I mean, of course, you get the odd reaction of like, Steve, I don't know if I could put this on my fridge. I got younger kids to think about here, but the most part, it was all very positive feedback. They put up with it because they were hoping, well, next year, I hope you'll go above and beyond. And just so happens I did, just because I happened to meet somebody to help that department out. So.
Okay, so you queued up Alyssa perfectly there. Alyssa, I want you to take me through the steps that led you to Steve.
Absolutely. So I was bartending at a restaurant in Okotoks, and I was at a friend's Christmas party. And we're having drinks, and I was single at the time, and I'm kind of like looking to start dating. And of course, like I was just in the brink of the Tinder when Tinder started. So I'm like, I don't really want to go on Tinder or dating apps. So I way prefer if someone introduced me to somebody. And as I'm like having a drink, I look on the fridge of a friend's house and I say, I just need to date a guy like that. Someone who's spontaneous and funny and doesn't take themselves too seriously. And in my mind, I thought it was like a postcard from like a funny website or something. Oh. And they were like, actually, that's Steve. He's way better looking in person. He raised $15,000 for the High River Cancer Center with his hair, which is why he grew it out. He just cut it, and he's single, and I actually think you guys might get along. And I was like, okay. So I finished my drink, and it was so great, and they set us up. So
but wait a sec, he wasn't on the other side of the room.
Absolutely not.
They weren't able to go. He's right over there.
I want her to make sure she sees my Christmas card. No. Yeah, he was completely separate. So yeah, that's how it started. It was love at first sight, for real. First Christmas card.
What was it about that card really that drew you in?
It truly was. I'm also someone who's super spontaneous, doesn't take myself too seriously. I'm super out there. We talked about it just before we came on. If I'm too much for you, go find less, right? I'm not the person that wears my heart on my sleeve, and I'm just very authentic. And sometimes that leads to me being silly, which is great because my authentic self I love very dearly. So I wanted someone who also was really authentic and didn't put on a mask hiding who they were. And that's what stood out to me the most. It wasn't what he looked like. It wasn't about, I knew nothing about this man. All I knew was that he was somebody who was authentically himself, and that really excited me.
Yeah, his pictures scream, I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Exactly. And I was like, we will have so much fun together. And 8 years later, we've had so much fun together.
Okay, so how did the setup actually happen?
So our friend, actually, our friends connected us on Facebook. So I sent a message because I was like, hey, I just wanted to meet up. Didn't get a response. So I responded again.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I know.
I'm not
Steve, buddy, what?
It was the delayed response. It was all part of the strategy.
Oh, okay.
Well, 5 days later, I sent another message saying, "It looks like my carrier pigeon got lost in the mail. When are you taking me out on a date?"
And that's where the sense of humor is like, okay. Yeah.
So I went for it, and I went for it again. Again, I'm not afraid to put myself out there. So that's how it officially happened. So our friend connected us, gave each other's Facebooks, and then we went on our first date.
And
Yeah,
much-
you know you're going to have to take us on that date now with you, right?
Sure, we'll take you on the date.
And so much like the first time she saw my Christmas card in the fridge, and Alyssa said it was love at first sight. It was very much the same feeling when I got to this restaurant, sat at a table. I made sure I get there early. Obviously, you want to make a good first impression. And Alyssa walked through the door, and she goes, "There's that handsome man." And I catch her eyes, and we just lock eyes. And she walked over to my table and sat down. And right from the get-go, I can honestly say I knew I was in trouble. So we have that drink, that quick bite, some really great conversations, swapped some stories, which made us both really laugh. And then by the end of that date, I kind of get in my own head sometimes. I'm like, oh, I really like this girl. I don't want to mess it up. And but I want to make a move, but how do I do it? And she looks at me, she goes, "Are you going to kiss me or what?" And I went, wow. She opens the door for me. And then it was like, so we had our first kiss, and then she got into her car, I got into mine, and we both talked about it. I started my truck, and I just went, well, that was my last first kiss. I pretty much convinced myself of that, and turns out it was.
Oh my gosh, that might be one of the most romantic phrases I've ever heard on this podcast. That was my last first kiss. Woo.
And he's the best. And as you can see, I think both of us have so many different layers. He's very dynamic, right? He's very out there and silly, but he's also very strong and passionate and romantic. And that's what made me officially fall in love with him.
Did you get the impression of all of those characteristics in that first date?
I just thought he'd be a fun time. Honestly, when I
Right.
first met, I was like, he seems like he's lots of fun. But it wasn't until that first date that I was like, this guy has totally different levels of depth and excitement. And he's very passionate about his work and very passionate about his friends and family. And that's when I was like, okay, this is more than just someone who shows off. Instead, it's someone who shows up.
Ooh.
Oh, nice, Terminus. I like that.
Yeah, but that really hit me, is those different layers that you get to meet. So of course on the card, all I saw was fun, exciting, spontaneous, authentic in his own self, comfortable with his body, right? There was our first date. That was when all the layers came in, and I went home and I was like, oh, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, you hit the jackpot, both of you. Where did the relationship go from there?
So it was interesting. The next day,
Yeah,
we
I'll
go on.
let you get it.
Yeah, we go on a second date, and he's like, "Alyssa, I feel something intense here, but I have something to tell you. I'm moving to Estevan tomorrow."
So I got a new job in Southeast Saskatchewan.
We're from Calgary, right?
And so it's about 9 hours away, roughly.
Oh,
So
ouch.
I brought her to the small town. I took her around town, all the sights in our little 2,200 person town. And then we were having supper later that night, and I broke it to her. I'm like, listen, I really feel a connection here, and I want to pursue this, but I am moving to Saskatchewan tomorrow. I don't know what this is going to look like or what's in the cards for us, but I'd like to pursue this further if you're willing to hang on and see if we can do this long distance, just to see what we can do. So, and
I said, you bet, I'm not going anywhere. So we did long distance, but that long distance turned into Steve flying home every weekend.
Flying or driving home, yeah.
So he was driving home 9 hours. There was one weekend, probably 2 or 3 months into us officially dating, because we went officially exclusive on that second date, which is unheard of for both of us. So this is not something that usually happens. Let's go back to that second date for a minute to walk. I'm from the city. I'm from Calgary. He's from a small town. And watching this guy who I not only think is authentic and fun and spontaneous, have now realized he has a lot of depth. And watching all these people in town looking at him being like, Steve, so nice to see you. Thanks so much for, volunteering your time for this cause last week. Older gentleman being like, oh, Steve, you're such a wonderful, wonderful man. And I was like, oh, so now there's another area here. He's the mayor of Nanton. Okay.
Yeah, all implants. I planted all those people.
Exactly. How much did you pay them?
Yeah, exactly. So we went exclusive that second date. And he flew or drove home. There was one weekend that he drove all the way to Calgary and then all the way to Montana for just a weekend to be with me, and then all the way back. So we did that for about 6 months.
6.5 months.
And he looks at me and he says, I like this job. but I like you more. I'm going to quit, come home, and I'm just going to believe that this is meant to be. So I don't have a job lined up, but we're going to see where this goes. So he quit his job and moved back to Calgary for me.
Wow.
And when he got back to Calgary, I said, well, I've had a 3-month backpacking solo trip to Europe planned for a long time. So bye. So I went to Europe for 3 months, like right before he came home. So he came home, he moved home, I came home, and in Europe, I'm that time 22, having a great time, and I just couldn't stop thinking about Steve. So I came home and we moved in together about a month later.
Wow, this is extraordinary. Had either of you ever had, this is a delicate question, a partner similar to you in this way?
Never.
No.
First of all, we also never lived with a partner before. This is our first, we both were, my friends all thought that there's no way I'd ever get married. That's just kind of who I was. I was a traveler. I was a free spirit. And so was Steve. And then, so when we moved in less than a year after meeting each other, all of our friends were like, they did not expect this to happen, but we knew from day one that it was going to work. And do you want to add to that?
Yeah, like the biggest test to like moving in with each other is that's where you really get to know somebody, right? And like, yeah, we've been dating long distance and everything's going really well, and we both like took that leap of faith and just relied on each other and really believed in the love that we had created, that it was worth a go for both of us. So when we moved in together, it was a very seamless fit. Like we just get along so well, and Alyssa's so amazing in so many different ways. Like her determination, tenacity, like she's just the most reliable person I've ever met in my life. And that's really saying something. Not only that, she cares so deeply for others, and she loves deeper and harder than anyone I've ever met. And it's just like, I'm extremely lucky to have found this lady. She saved my life essentially. Right. So, moving in together, even though it seemed fast to everybody else, to me, I'm sure you attested this too, it felt like we've been known each other for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like
and the exciting part about that also, he quit his job at the time I was a server, right? So we built our careers together and we really like helped each other skyrocket where we are today. So without Steve, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And
I would definitely not have the job I have without.
So building our careers, building our home, building our life, building our family was just like so seamless with Steve. Everything from day one has just felt easy. Even though there's lots of hard times, let's be honest.
Okay, I'm glad you said that in a way, because I was just about to say we've got a problem here, because if this is going to be a Hallmark Christmas movie, we got to have some kind of conflict or challenge, and it's all sounding too easy.
And here's the thing, I think obviously in any relationship, in any marriage, there's lots and lots of ups and downs, right? There's lots of things that you have to go through. Lots, including we got married in COVID, right? Planning the wedding in COVID. We were in together in COVID. We got our careers going. Obviously there's things, but the biggest thing that we focus on is that it's us against the problem versus me versus Steve, right? So when there is a problem, even when we're about to start yelling at each other, we're like, is this actually us against each other, or is there an outside problem that we can fix together? And that's the mentality that we've had from day one, is how can we work together to fix the problem rather than try to blame it on each other.
That could be the best marriage advice we've ever had on this podcast.
Great. It works very well. We have some really interesting rules that we follow as well.
Anything? Okay, what else are you willing to share?
A big one is the 100% rule. Okay. And I actually forget where this comes from, but we have like a couple mentors who are in marriages who we really look up to, right? People who've been married for 20, 30 years. And they tell us, this couple told us this, that there's no way that it's 50-50, right? It can't be 50-50 all the time. Instead, it's 100. So if I'm having a hard day, I'll go to Steve and I'm saying, dude, I'm at 20%. Can you pick up 80%? And he's like, absolutely, right? So that means that he'll do the dishes, he'll get the baby up. Let's flash forward. Uh-oh.
It's spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But finding your percentage is so important. So, and communicating that percentage. If we're both at 20%, that means we order in food and we watch movies, right? We don't do anything.
We don't fight it.
We don't fight it. But talking about where you are in that percentage allows you to give a lot of grace to that person because they communicate it. That's another one that we do almost daily.
I guess it's also being willing to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm only at
Exactly. And
20%.
sometimes it's easier to be vulnerable with numbers, right? Rather than emotions or feelings. Sometimes it's easier just to be like, I'm not doing well, instead of, can you give me the monologue of why? Just being, I'm at 20%, and just accepting that and helping out the other 80%. What's the other one that you like?
The other one is the rule of 10. So this helps resolve fights, probably could prolong fights, create grudges, but I think it's a necessary tool that we like to use. So when you move in together, obviously there's the bachelor guy who has all of his stuff. There's obviously the very successful woman with all of her stuff. And not necessarily like when you first move in together, but as the relationship grows and you're building that life together, what are things that you can live with and what are things that you can live without? So it's like, I had this picture of Cosmo Kramer from Seinfeld, big old,
The one that you picture in
You know.
every guy's dorm. Every college
Yes.
guy you've ever been to has this picture hanging above.
and I wanted to put it on the wall, and Alyssa was very much against it. And this is like a great example. She goes, "Okay, let's try using this tool." She goes, "What out of 10 is that?" I'm like, "That's a 10. It's a 10 out of 10. I'll get rid of it." Nope,
So
it's
I
not
say,
going
okay,
anywhere.
if that's actually a 10 for you, we can figure out a place to put it. You're welcome to put it downstairs.
Yeah.
But I won't make you throw it out, right? So that's a really good analogy of like a thing, or even like something about like values, like what's a value of yours, right?
Mhm.
If it's a 1 for him, he's like, oh, I kind of think this, and it's a 10 for me, especially like we add in parenting, right? If it's a 1 for Steve and a 10 for me, the 10 is kind of, with after communication and conversation, is kind of the winner, right?
We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. When did you start doing Christmas cards together?
So this was after we decided that we were going to take our relationship full time and actually commit to each other, because that was a stipulation. Like, if you want to be with Steve or with me, like, I've been doing this card for 5 years. We're obviously going to continue doing the cards. So I'd love to do this together if you're willing to do it. And Alyssa was absolutely hands down. I knew what I was getting into the second I saw that card on the fridge. So,
But I also knew that was a bigger deal than a marriage, because I can't be on a card and then all of a sudden nobody,
Right.
and then all of a sudden a new woman. That's not going to
Right.
work. This has to.
This is true commitment.
So I had to commit to it. So we had a big conversation. Do you want to be in it this year? And I said yes. And then we came up with our first Christmas card.
And that was when we're in toe-to-toe flannel, or lack thereof, in my case. And it was really well received. Our friends and family just really enjoyed it. And then, it turned into next year, and like, oh, what are you guys going to do this year? And of course, it was 2018, so the Olympics were happening. So let's do an Olympic themed one. So we did a bunch of different sports there. And then the year after that was when I decided that it was time to take that next step. So we had, I'd surprised Alyssa with a little bit of a trip. We're going out to my in-laws' cabin out in the foothills, just at the base of the Rocky Mountains here in Alberta, and took her for a drive and took her up to the place that we actually shot the first Christmas card. And we walked out to that viewing point, and I got down on one knee and I proposed to her at the spot where we created so many memories. So thankfully she said yes. We both, nobody really prepares you for that moment, really. Honestly, like, my heart was racing, even though the answer is going to be yes. It's still scary, right?
Mhm.
Alyssa dropped her knees. We're both sitting around her knees, and we hugged and kissed. And the next day, I had Lori come out and shoot that Christmas card. So the very next day after I proposed is when we did our next Christmas card, which was, "This year has a nice ring to it."
Yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful proposal. Can I tell you how romantic he is? Can I give you a little tidbit in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had told me when we first moved in together, he had a bottle of wine that he was very important to him. He had bought it 10 years prior on a boys' trip in San Francisco. And he said, I'm going to open up this bottle of wine when I meet the girl I'm going to marry. So as we come down the mountain after he proposed, we walk in and the bottle of wine is open with 2 glasses sitting on the table.
Chills. I just got chills, and it's not because you were in a cold environment.
No,
Wow.
it was so sweet. And yeah, and then we just spent 3 days at this cabin, just the two of us, no phones, no nothing, just to kind of like soak that in, because I think we are so public about so many things, obviously.
Yeah.
That it was really nice to just be Steve and I for the actual proposal.
Yeah.
That is amazing, and I can't even imagine how you top this all off with a wedding.
So, again, we decided to do a longer engagement because being from a small town, I come from a rather large family. My dad is one of 11.
Mm.
And small town weddings, the whole town's invited. So we had a guest list of roughly 550 to 650 people.
Oh my god.
And then COVID hits.
Yeah.
So again, this is kind of the trend of our relationship is one obstacle after the others. We got long distance, we've got unemployment, we've got moving in together, and now we got COVID. So we've managed to navigate all these obstacles Alyssa navigates them all with tremendous amount of grace and poise. It's just a testament to her character itself. And it was difficult, like COVID, like was for everybody else. It was very difficult, but we managed to get through that because we have the mindset of take it as it comes and we'll just do what we need to do. And we ended up getting through that. We didn't change the date. A lot of people were like canceling things and trying to push it. And we decided, no, this is our day. We want to keep this as our day. And we had to reduce the guest list, obviously. So we had 38 people show up to the wedding, just immediate families and wedding party. And we managed to have a nice little party. So we ended up getting married at the same ranch where we spent the 3 days after our proposal as well. So it worked out really well for us. But
yeah, so that Christmas card that year, I wore my mom's 1980s wedding gown, and that ended up being also our wedding invite. So our Christmas card was now our wedding invite, which was super fun, and we got like fun pictures in that. And then flash forward to canceling the wedding, dropping it from 550, 600 to 38. As much as it was really challenging when doing it, right? I have this whole wedding fully planned. We got married in June, of course, like in 2020. So of course, this is like 3 months out. Everything is planned. Everything's booked. And canceling it was really, really hard. However, looking back, thank goodness that it got canceled. And we had 38 of our closest people who were able to fall in love with us. And then we bought a house instead. So
Oh, yes.
so it's funny, like in the moment, I was devastated. I remember that the first day we canceled everything, we knew it wasn't safe. We canceled everything. I just watched P.S. I Love You. We just like cried all day because we were so sad about it. But yeah, it's interesting. Those things that aren't meant to be for you won't be for you, right? That huge wedding. We might have a 5-year anniversary, have a big party, but having it really intimate and just being able to marry the man that I'm obsessed with and still obsessed with to this day. In front of all of our friends and family was so beautiful. And on the wedding day, it hailed awful everywhere. And everything in June, it hailed awful.
Wow.
But somehow it circled our where our wedding was, like probably by like not even a kilometer. And my brother-in-law was like, "Oh, Alyssa, this happens all the time. It'll just circle where we're at." He told me the next day, he goes, "That doesn't happen."
Never
I was trying to make you feel better, but it did. So it completely circled us. So it didn't hail on us at all. And we got the most beautiful dynamic pictures like of the storms in the background, beautiful wedding photos, also taken by Lori Lurie, of course. We had to make that transfer over. And when we were driving out, there was probably half a foot of hail, in the ditch. Oh, yeah. Everything was hail, but not for us. It ended up being beautiful and perfect. And at the time it was so devastating, but looking back now, we're so grateful that that's what happened.
So I have to ask the obvious question. Was your Christmas card that year a picture and a caption that said, "All hail the happy couple"?
That would have been good. That year we were in COVID and we had toilet paper everywhere. We had Tiger King on the background in our house. We were in remember that, right? We had all COVID staples around us, and just took it in our house. So to commemorate that. So we have been doing it from Steve's, I guess, what year is this now?
This will be year 12.
Yeah.
12 years.
In it.
Yeah.
So Steve, you were single when you started, then you two became a pair. And when did things evolve into a family?
Yeah, so our son is almost 2. So he was born in 2022, which was, oh man, he's so fun. And people often told us, they were like, oh, you guys are in for it. Your kids are going to be crazy. And both of us are like,
Yeah.
well, we hope so. I don't know what to do with a kid who's not crazy. Like, I
I don't-
hope he's insane.
I don't
Like,
want a
that's-
boring kid.
Yeah, we're like, if he enjoys like, the quieter things, like, I don't know what to do with that. Crazy's good. We know how to handle crazy. And that he is hilarious and just like the apple of our eye, and Steve is the best dad in the entire world. And watching him become a dad has been so exciting. So last year was our first Christmas card with Logan. He was a baby, so we couldn't do anything too crazy, but this year he's a toddler. So we have some fun plans for this.
Any hints?
Let's just say it will be photoshopped and Logan will not actually be in danger.
Okay. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. And I mean, people were like, well, you have a kid now, you have to be less risky. I'm like, just because I'm a mom doesn't mean that I can't be any less fun or any less provocative. so let's just, that's the other piece.
Now the goal is to create cards that he'll be embarrassed of when he's a teenager. So,
oh God.
I mean, we've already got 10 years of that.
I think you've done that already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And when he Googles us, he's like, Mom, Dad. We're like, yeah, you know who you were getting born into.
We had a conversation the other day about the legacy of the card now, Nancy. So we're wondering, will Logan want to take this on himself as he grows up?
Oh, right.
And the transition, or I guess we could say succession planning.
Succession planning. And it's like, how do we ensure we don't force this onto our son? Like it's a business, really.
Well, as Alyssa says, though, I mean, he could Google it, and there is quite a bit of material out there because everybody loves this story. We were so excited to find it, but it turns out you've had a fair bit of attention because of these cards.
That first card with the 2 of us went quite viral. So we were on a couple different news outlets. We were on a couple different online blogs. There's a couple reasons why I think that happened, but you go first. Why do you think people really took off and really liked that one?
Well, one, I think the picture itself is phenomenal. I really enjoy it. That's my favorite one and will forever be my favorite one. But I think the story that comes involved with it, with Bachelor meets his match through risque Christmas cards. But I just feel like doing it by yourself for so long is only funny when it starts to become sad. I guess. But Alyssa, finding somebody who shares your comedic values and is willing to put themselves out there, she really adds this just zest to this card. And obviously that's not the goal. I didn't want to meet someone that could be a model on my card. This was something that we decided to do together. And I think that's why it's so special to me and why it means so much to me. It's not just like a symbol. To me, it's everything. This is the first real photo I have of my everything, essentially, right? So it means a lot to me, and I just love the fact that so many other people enjoy it, and a lot of people have fun with it. And there's some other things that came out of it, but that's why I think it's gotten so much attention, anyways.
Oh, well, I have to pick up on. There's some other things that came out of it. ...
Yeah, so this was a time, I want to say this is roughly the 2018 when photo credit was getting a lot of attention, where potentially someone will share a photo and not give credit. So what happened is there was a celebrity that took the card and photoshopped his face on Alyssa's and his friend on mine and shared it, but didn't give credit, which created a little bit of a stir where his Instagram ended up getting taken down, and he reached out to us apologizing and saying,
and we weren't upset. We thought it was hilarious. A bunch of other photographers were upset about it.
Right.
And then we ended up getting bullied on social media.
Some people laughed because his Instagram got shut down and they blamed us. And so we get the ugly side of social media.
Yeah. So that was the unfun side of it. But again, there's two sides to every coin, right? You can look at the fun side, you can look at the unfun side, and also just take it. Sometimes it wasn't super fun that one year, but we still carried on, and we're like, no, it still feels really good. This has nothing to do with us. This has to do with the situation. Let's continue it on and make it continue the legacy.
And then there'd be a few other examples where it'd be like a Christmas party at a fun bar in a town like 2 days drive away, and it's our picture, like come out and have fun. And like our eyes are lined out and our friends are snapping pictures like, look at this is hilarious.
So honestly, we love it. And from my perspective, I think why it kind of did so well is I think we're just like, we're not models, right? We're like your friends next door. We're like your friends. We're like anybody, right? And I think people can really relate to us in like seeing that you can be really fun and really exciting. And maybe I can talk a little bit about what our parents thought like of that first one. My mom was like, honey, you want to get into like marketing, right? And public relations. You want to be a professional. Like maybe like hinder your career. And I was like, if someone doesn't like this, they're not going to like me. This is just like, this is an epitome of who I am. And people said the same to Steve. And both of us kind of landed our first careers, like our first in because of the cards. Whereas my role that really kind of skyrocketed my career, at the end, they were like, you're that Christmas card girl, aren't you? And I was like, I am. And they're like, that's so funny. We have it posted all over. So I think it just goes to show that if you're authentic, the things that like are going to be for you, people who are going to be in that same vibe as you are going to like it. Even though it can be scary because other people are like, that is ridiculous. But find your people, right? Find your people with the same mentality as you.
I love your attitude. And even in the way you answered your mom, you know, why am I going to create an image of myself to please others when I can just be myself?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. So first, I guess I want to ask, how has being a parent changed your relationship?
Whew, great question. Why don't you go first? You take it first.
Becoming a parent is something that I've always wanted. It's been the greatest promotion I've ever had. It's been just the best 21 months and change. You read about it, people tell you stories about it, but nothing prepares you until you actually do it. So the strength that we've been able to build on our relationship after having a child, because there's a lot of compromises that you have to have before and understanding before. But once we get into like the nitty gritty of being a parent, like there's a lot of flexibility that has to come with that. And we've managed to like hit that head on and actually become even stronger, in my opinion, than we ever were. And I don't know, we always used to make excuses like, oh, I got time to do that. Oh, I'll do that later. I don't know what I used to do at the time before having a kid. Now it's like the kid goes down for a nap and I'm power cleaning for an hour. We're power cleaning for an hour. And the amount of stuff you can get done in that little window of time, it's like, how did I ever think I never had time to do anything? So I think it's always evolving, always changing, but it's always for the best. And yes, we've had like struggles, not necessarily struggles, but we've had like learnings along the way of where like I need to maybe help out a little bit more, be more accountable, or our communication needed to improve quite a bit, obviously. But it's been an exciting wild ride, and I wouldn't change a second of it.
Yeah. And for me, I was actually speaking on a panel of like mothers in business and how you can manage the two. And I was very quick to check our privilege. We have both of our grandmas, both of our grandparents in town or 40 minutes away. So we are able to like once a week, typically we go on a date night, whether that looks like, you know, going out just for dinner or going out somewhere. The grandmas and grandpas are very happy to babysit. So checking that, like we kind of treat our marriage like our first kid, right? So that needs just as much love and support as our child does. But that could only happen, number one, with when you grandparents who can do that. And number two, when you have a partner who wants to be an equal contributor. So we both can work and we can both like grow our careers and both grow our marriage together. Because I'm not so exhausted all the time. I have that time to myself. I have that time to be able to be myself and be who Alyssa is and be who Steve is. I think that's been the catalyst of being able to keep our marriage like continuing to grow. And after having a super traumatic birth, watching my husband be able to support me through something that I didn't think I'd ever be able to kind of get through was so beautiful to be able to see that another level of that the dynamics of him, right? That you wouldn't see otherwise, him being able to take care of me and our son into a level that I am so grateful for.
That's beautiful. Alyssa, you talk about who you are and who he is. What do you love most about who Steve is?
To this day, I still love how he truly believes that anything is possible and things will just work out, right? We've also had to talk a little bit about the invisible tasks of the reason why things work out is because someone is doing a lot of the tasks, right? But that belief of just things are good, people are good things will happen to good people is something that he continues to show on, like throw on to me. So when I'm like, oh, this happened and this happened, he goes, people are good things will work out. And when I am allowed to sit in that mentality, I'm like, things do work out. And then they typically do. Even if, like the wedding, where it feels like it's the end of the world, years later, you're like, that makes a lot of sense. So his ability to just see the beautiful bright side of things is one of my favorites. The second is his ability to, when he walks into a room, everybody lights up. Is still watching him do his thing with other people is just so exciting. He makes people feel seen. And I don't know many people who can do that so naturally.
Oh.
Beautiful answer. Steve, that's a hard act to follow, but
That is a tough act to follow. But when you've been with someone so amazing for so long, it's fairly easy to answer. The way that Alyssa carries herself is unlike anybody I've ever met in my life. So people naturally gravitate towards her because of what she exudes, like the confidence she exudes, that she always makes people feel like they're in a safe space, which can be a blessing and a curse at the same time. People will just come up to her and be like, hi, I've read a lot about you, or I heard a lot about you. Oh, by the way, these are all my problems. And so like kind of gets trapped in that corner, but she likes to make space for other people. And that's what I mean by she's so empathetic. She's so caring, nurturing, and she's just so full of love that it's one of the most amazing things about her. She also has the work ethic unlike anyone else I've ever met in my life. If she sets her mind to something, she doesn't half-ass anything. There is no 50%, 75%. It is 100% all the way, and she will see it through. And she not only does it for herself, but she will pick up people along the way and bring them up. She's just always willing to throw you on your back if you need help. She's just the most incredible wife, mother, and partner that any schmuck like me could ask for. So I find myself very lucky. She's just incredible.
well, I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that I want to just be your friend. I bet everybody out there listening is, how can I just be friends with these two? And how do I get their Christmas card? So at least answer that for me.
So we ended up sending like almost 700 one year. And of course with postage, and we're like, okay, this is officially where we have too many now. Like it was taking us weeks to like, and we would handwrite all of So now we just do friends and family for actual Christmas cards. But we always post it on our Instagrams. So my Instagram, shout out, shameless plug, Alyssa S. McMasters.
Good.
That's where we'll have it. Probably in the next couple of weeks, it'll be out. So this year.
Oh, okay. Well, you two are a tonic in a world that is pretty heavy right now. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the joy you bring.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak with you, Nancy.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.